Stood up at Thanksgiving and called me a thief in front of everyone. I just sat there, frozen, my fork halfway to my mouth. The room went silent, the way it does right before a car crash. My face burned, my chest tightened, and the only words that came out of my mouth were, "I have no idea what you're talking about." I wish I could tell you I stood up, shouted back, and shut her down right then. I didn't. I just stared at the tablecloth, listening to her tear me apart in front of my own family. That should have been the worst part, but it wasn't. The worst part was knowing this wasn't a slip. It was calculated. And in that exact moment, somewhere under the shame and panic, something inside me clicked. If she wanted to play this out in public, then I was going to take it public in a way she never saw coming. She'd built this perfect, saintly image of herself online, and I was going to be the one to expose her. Before I tell you exactly how I did that, I need you to know who we are. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 27. Back to that night. My grandma was at the head of the table, the way she always is, like the queen of Thanksgiving. Her china, her silverware, her rules. The turkey had just been carved. We were passing around the sweet potatoes, and I was trying to ignore the fact that I was sitting between my perfect sister and my perfect cousin, listening to them talk about their promotions and wedding plans, while I silently did the maths on my overdue electric bill. Then Grandma tapped her glass with a fork. The sound cut through all the chatter. "I need to say something," she announced. I remember the exact way everyone's eyes lifted. Dad looked wary. Mom looked nervous. Uncle Steve looked like he'd already had too much wine. I thought she was going to give some long-winded blessing about gratitude and family. Instead, she looked straight at me. "Emily," she said, voice cold and sharp, "I'm very disappointed in you." My heart dropped. "What?" I managed. "You know exactly what," she snapped. "I wasn't going to bring this up today, but I can't sit here and pretend nothing happened. After everything I've done for you, I open my online banking and see 3 unauthorized purchases from my account on websites I don't use, and the bank tells me they're traced back to your email address. My own granddaughter stealing from me." The room went dead silent. My fork slipped and hit the plate. Every eye was on me. What?" I stammered. "I have no idea what you're talking about." But my voice sounded weak, even to me. Grandma pursed her lips like she'd expected this. "Of course you'd deny it. You always deny responsibility. That's the problem with your generation. I've had to cancel my card, at my age, right before Christmas." She dramatically put a hand to her chest, "And you just sit there." Mom whispered, "Mom, maybe we should talk about this later." "No," Grandma cut in. "They all need to know. I've kept quiet about Emily's behavior for years. The drinking, the attitude, the way she threw away the college fund we scraped together." My stomach twisted. That was a lie. That was the first big twist for anyone else listening, maybe, but not for me. I'd heard this version before, and every time she told it, the story got worse for me and cleaner for her. I started, but my voice cracked. "I didn't steal anything." "What websites? What are you talking about? You never told me this." Grandma slammed her napkin on the table. "I'm not going to argue with a liar on Thanksgiving." The word liar stung more than thief. I looked around the table. Dad stared down at his plate. Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. Chloe looked uncomfortable, but also superior. Uncle Steve shook his head sadly, like he was disappointed. Olivia actually scooted her chair closer to her mom. "I thought you were better than this, Em," Uncle Steve muttered. "Your grandma's on a fixed income." "I didn't do anything," I said, but it sounded small, defensive, pathetic. "I swear, I have no idea about it." Grandma sniffed. "You're the only one in this family who's always on computers and up to something online. Who else would get hold of my account? These charges were for some design website and some subscription thing. That's you, Emily. Don't insult my intelligence." The thing is, I do work online. I use design software and subscription tools all the time. So even though I knew I hadn't touched her account, I could feel the suspicion spreading around the table. It was like watching ink leak through water. Slow, but unstoppable. I should have demanded proof. I should have told her to show everyone the bank statements. Instead, my throat closed up. I felt 14 again, not 27. I just kept repeating, "I have no idea what you're talking about," because my brain had gone blank. Grandma shook her head, pushed her chair back, and announced, "If you won't even own up to what you did, I don't see why you're still sitting at this table." Then, turning to my parents, "You two should be ashamed. This is how you raised her." No one told her to stop. No one told her she was overreacting. The only sound was the ticking clock in the hallway and someone's chair creaking. "I think I need some air," I muttered, and I stood up. My legs were shaking. No one stopped me when I grabbed my coat and walked out into the cold November evening, blinking back tears. I sat in my car and just shook, hands gripping the steering wheel. I watched my breath on the windshield and kept replaying everything she'd said, the way she'd turned the whole family against me in 5 minutes, the way not one person had defended me. The first twist, the one that really sent me down the revenge path, happened an hour later when I got home to my tiny studio flat and did what any humiliated millennial does. I opened my phone. I had a notification from Facebook. "Margaret Carter has tagged you in a post." My stomach dropped. I clicked it, hands sweating. It was a long post on her Graceful Grandmother page, a page with almost 20,000 followers. "Today," it read, "my heart broke in a way I never imagined. I found out that someone very close to me, someone I raised, someone I loved, used my bank details without my permission. I won't name names, but it was family. I am sharing this not for pity, but to warn others. Even those you trust can betray you. Pray for me as I forgive this hurt." Forgiveness. Checked. Family betrayal. There was a blurry photo attached of the Thanksgiving table. You could see the side of my face, turned away. Comments were already pouring in. "Oh, Maggie, I'm so sorry. Some grandkids just don't appreciate what they have. Praying for you, sweet friend. And you still choose forgiveness. You're such an example." I stared at it, numb at first. Then the rage came, hot and sharp. This wasn't just a family argument. She was using me as content, as a lesson, as a way to boost engagement. She'd framed herself as the wounded saint and me as the faceless, ungrateful villain. I clicked her profile, her bio, Christian grandmother, wife, mother, survivor, sharing wisdom and stories of grace, DM for prayer requests or collaboration. The link to her blog, posts about forgiveness, humility, respecting your elders, photos of her standing in front of our church, hands clasped, smiling that smug little smile. That's when the second twist hit me properly. My grandma wasn't just controlling our family. She was branding herself as wholesome and holy to a whole audience of strangers. And she was using lies about me to feed that image. I work in social media. I know how powerful that public image is. I also know how fragile it can be when the truth comes out. That night, as I lay awake replaying every humiliation, all the old wounds started surfacing. The college fund, the way she'd always compared me to Chloe, the way she'd twisted stories to make me look like a screw-up and herself like the martyr. When I was 17, my parents told me there was a college fund for me. Grandma and Grandpa had started it when I was born. We weren't rich, but I grew up hearing, "Grandma and Grandpa are saving up so you can go to university." It was this big thing in our family. When Grandpa died my senior year, Grandma cried over the phone and told me, "He was so proud of you. He wanted you to have every opportunity." Then, a month before applications were due, Mom and Dad sat me down looking awkward. "There's been a problem with the fund," Dad said. The market took a hit. The account isn't what we expected. That was the polite version. The real version came later, in bits and pieces. Grandma had used most of my college fund to bail out Uncle Steve's failing business. She told my parents she'd borrowed it, that she'd replace it, that it was all for the family. But she never did. And when I asked her once why the money was gone, she'd sighed and said, "We all have to make sacrifices, Emily. Your uncle has children to feed. You chose not to apply yourself properly in school anyway. You wouldn't have made use of that money." Years later, she started telling people I'd wasted my college fund, as if I'd blown it on partying or something. I swallowed that version of reality for years because no one wanted to challenge her. She was the matriarch, the widow, the saint. Lying there in the dark that night, staring at her Facebook post and the hundreds of "poor you" comments, something in me hardened. I was done swallowing it. I was done being her scapegoat. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew this. My revenge was going to hit her where she thought she was untouchable, her online image. And I was going to do it without breaking the law, without sinking to her level of pure lies. I'd use the thing she hated most, the actual truth. The next morning, another twist landed in my inbox, or, more accurately, in my credit score app. I'd gotten into the habit of checking my credit every few months, because being a freelancer means any surprise could tank you. I opened the app out of reflex and froze. There was a new account listed that I didn't recognize, a store card for a big electronics chain, opened 6 months ago, with a balance of $1,800. I definitely had not opened any store cards. My heart started pounding. I clicked through to the details. The address on file was my grandparents' old house, Grandma's house, my name, my social security number, their address. At first, I thought it had to be some kind of clerical error. Then I saw 3 recent purchases: a flat-screen TV, a new laptop, and some random home electronics. The card had been opened right before Grandma posted a photo of her new smart TV a kind Parisian soul helped me afford so I can watch church online. I felt sick. This wasn't just her blaming me for charges on her account. She'd actually opened credit in my name. Identity theft. Suddenly, those design website charges she'd accused me of got a lot more suspicious. I called the bank linked to the store card. After 20 minutes of hold music and transfers, a bored-sounding guy finally came on the line. I explained I'd never opened this account. "We have a signed application on file," he said. "Can you send me a copy?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I can email it to the address on file," he said. "That email's mine," I admitted, because that part was right. Grandma knew my email. "But I didn't fill out anything. Please just send it. I think my identity's been used without my permission." He agreed, and within minutes I had a PDF sitting in my inbox. I opened it and stared. There was my name, my address from when I still lived at home, my date of birth, my social security number, and a signature at the bottom that looked almost, but not quite, like mine. Like someone had tried to copy it. In the authorized user section, there was a second card holder, Margaret Carter. That was the moment I stopped wondering if my grandma could really be lying about me and started asking how far she'd already gone. I took screenshots of everything: the account, the statement, the application with the forged signature. Then I sat back on my cheap IKEA chair and just breathed in and out, trying not to freak out. This changed things. This wasn't just her destroying my reputation. This could destroy my actual life. My credit score wasn't amazing, but it was okay. One more hit like this, and I wouldn't be able to rent a new flat or finance a car. I wanted to call her right then and scream. I didn't. Instead, I did what I always tell my own clients: document first, react later. Revenge done right takes planning. I made a folder on my laptop called Maggie Receipts. It felt petty at first, but also satisfying. Into that folder went the store card application, the statements, screenshots of her Facebook post and comments, old texts where she'd half admitted to borrowing my college money for Steve. Then, another twist. I pulled my full credit report. If she'd opened one account in my name, what else had she touched? Buried halfway down the page was a mobile phone contract I didn't recognize, opened 3 years ago, also at her address. Perfect payment history, no missed bills. On one level, that meant my score hadn't been hurt. On another level, it meant she'd used my identity for 3 years without me noticing and had gotten comfortable doing it. I remembered her waving around a brand new smartphone at Christmas a couple of years back, saying some promotion had made it almost free. I remembered thinking it was weird she suddenly had a high-end phone when she was always moaning about money. Now it made sense. I added that to the Maggie receipts folder. By now my anger had taken on a sharp, bright edge. This wasn't an impulsive mistake. She'd taken my identity, my future, my name, and then had the nerve to call me a thief in front of everyone. At this point, revenge wasn't just about humiliating her back. It was about protecting myself and making sure she couldn't keep doing this to me, or anyone. The next twist came when I decided, against my better judgment, to talk to my mum first. I met her at a cafe near her office, a small place that smelled like burnt coffee and fried eggs. She looked tired, her dark hair threaded with more gray than I remembered. "How are you?" she asked, sitting down. "You left so suddenly yesterday." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean after Grandma called me a thief in front of everyone and you didn't say a word in my defense?" She winced. "It wasn't the time, Emily." "When is the time?" I shot back. "When she lies about me online to thousands of strangers? Did you see her post?" Mum's eyes flickered. She was upset. Sometimes she exaggerates. Exaggerates? I pulled out my phone, opened the Maggie receipts folder, and slid the screen toward her. "This is not exaggeration. This is a store card opened in my name at her address. This is a phone contract. That laptop she bragged about buying, on my credit. And then she has the nerve to accuse me of stealing a few stupid subscription charges from her." Mum scrolled, color draining from her face. "Oh my God," she whispered. I didn't know." "You didn't want to know," I said quietly. "No one ever wants to know when it comes to her." Tears welled up in her eyes. "You have to understand. She helped us when you were little. She watched you while I worked. She made sure we could pay the rent some months. I owe her so much." "Do you?" I asked. "Or has she just told you that so many times you believe it? Because from where I'm sitting, she's been cashing in that I helped you card for 30 years, and the interest is everyone's silence." Mum dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. "What are you going to do?" I took a breath. This was my first time saying it out loud. "I'm going to the bank and the police about the identity stuff, and I'm going to tell my side of the story, publicly." Her head snapped up. "You can't. She's old, Emily. People will think you're attacking her." "She attacked me first," I said. "And not just me. You know she took my college fund for Steve. Now she's using my name. How long before she opens something in Chloe's?" Mum looked away. "About the college fund. There's something I never told you." My stomach tightened. "What?" "She didn't just use it for Steve," Mum said in a small voice. "She told me if I ever told you the truth, she'd cut us off completely. Back then, your dad had just been laid off. We were behind on the mortgage. She offered to help, but only if I agreed not to tell you she'd emptied almost everything to bail your uncle out. And she told everyone else that you'd squandered it. I let her, because I was scared." It was like the air went out of the room. This was the twist I hadn't even realized I'd been waiting for. Proof that it wasn't just me she manipulated, it was my mum too. "So, you let her destroy my reputation to keep her money?" I asked, my voice shaking. Mum flinched. I thought I was protecting our family. I thought you'd be okay. You're so strong, Em. I didn't think it would follow you like this. I'm sorry." I closed my eyes. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me just felt this deep, tired sadness. "I'm not doing this just for me," I said finally. "I'm doing it so she can't keep doing this to anyone, including you." Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled it back. "Please don't do anything drastic," she begged. "If you ruin her reputation, she might change her will. She's always said everything will be split between you girls and Steve. We can't afford to." I laughed. There it is, the will, the inheritance, the carrot she dangles in front of everyone so they stay quiet. Mum looked guilty. "It's not like that." "It is exactly like that," I said. "I'm not staying quiet for money that might not even exist by the time she's done helping people. I'm done, Mum." On the way home, I called the non-emergency police line and asked about identity theft. The officer was surprisingly kind. He told me to file a report online, contact the credit agencies, and send everything in writing to the companies involved. It wouldn't mean my grandma would be dragged out in handcuffs or anything. It would mostly just protect me, put a flag on my file, and make it harder for her to do it again. I did all of that. It felt tedious and undramatic, but I kept reminding myself, real revenge isn't always dramatic in the moment. Sometimes it's slow and bureaucratic and boring. Protect yourself, then make your move. At the same time, I started planning my other attack, online. I knew I couldn't just post, "My grandma is a thief and a liar," and hope people believed me. That would make me look petty and bitter, and maybe even get me sued. What I needed was a story. My story, with evidence. I needed to frame it like what it really was, a pattern of financial and emotional abuse from an older relative who hid behind religion and Facebook likes. I opened a blank document and started writing in the same kind of simple, honest voice I'm using now. I titled it, "When Your Perfect Grandma Isn't So Perfect, My Story." The first draft poured out of me in a few hours. I wrote about the college fund, about the humiliation at Thanksgiving, about the credit accounts in my name. I didn't use her full name. I used M. I blurred identifying details, but I described the situation so clearly that anyone who knew us would recognize it, and anyone who didn't would still understand the pattern. I decided to record it as a video. Faces and voices hit harder than text. I set up my phone on a stack of books, positioned near my window for decent light, and hit record. I introduced myself, gave my age, and said, "I'm sharing this because I know I'm not the only one with a perfect older relative who turned out to be something else behind closed doors. This is my experience. I'm not asking you to believe anything I can't show proof for. I just want to tell the truth." I cried a bit. I laughed bitterly in a few places. I held up blurred screenshots of the credit account, the Facebook post, old texts where she twisted the college fund story. I talked about how helpless I'd felt at that Thanksgiving table, how much shame I'd carried for years because of narratives she'd created about me. When I was done, I watched it back. It was raw and shaky, not polished at all. I'm a social media manager. I know how to make things slick, but something in me liked the fact that it looked real. Because it was. I uploaded it to TikTok and to a small YouTube channel I'd mostly used for client tutorials and random vlogs. I didn't expect much, maybe a few hundred views, some sympathetic comments, then it would fade. That video changed everything. The first twist in the online world came 12 hours later when I woke up, checked my phone, and saw the notifications. 150,000 views on TikTok, 8,000 likes, 2,000 comments. On YouTube, 40,000 views overnight, subscriptions climbing by the minute. My heart raced as I scrolled through the comments. This is my story too, except it's my dad doing it. I thought I was alone having a manipulative Christian grandma. Thank you for speaking up. Girl, please press charges. This is identity theft. Can you do a video explaining how to check for accounts opened in your name? Only 1 or 2 comments were like, respect your elders, but they were drowned out by people, mostly women, sharing their own experiences with toxic grandparents, parents, and church elders. I hadn't named my grandma, but within hours, people from our town started messaging me privately. Is this about Maggie Carter? I think I know who you're talking about. She's always seemed too good to be true. I'm sorry this happened to you. She once told me you dropped out of school to party. I guess that wasn't true, huh? One message hit me especially hard. It was from a woman named Sarah who went to our church. Hey Emily, she wrote. I don't want to cause drama, but I saw your video and I think your grandma used my donation money for the church building fund to pay for her grandson's car. I never said anything because she made me feel guilty. Watching your video, I realized I'm not crazy. Another pattern. Donations for the church that never quite made it to the church. This was growing beyond me. My hands shook, but not from fear this time. From a sense of power I'd never felt before. By the end of the day, the video had 1 million views. It had been stitched, duetted, shared to Twitter and Facebook. People were calling it Grandma Gate, which made me laugh and cringe at the same time. Then, unsurprisingly, the family group chat lit up. First, it was Chloe. Emily, what did you do? Grandma is in tears. Take that video down. Then Uncle Steve. You're malicious. After everything Mom did for you, this is how you repay her? Internet clout? Aunt Karen. You're lying for attention. No decent person airs family laundry like this. My dad sent a single text. We need to talk. My mom texted separately. I know you're hurting, but please think about the consequences. She's talking about changing her will. She says she never wants to see you again. I stared at the screen. A few months ago, that would have gutted me. Now, it just solidified something. If her love or acceptance was always tied to money and silence, was it really love? I didn't respond in the group chat. Instead, I posted a follow-up video. Seeing a lot of messages about you shouldn't air family laundry online, I said into the camera, if you've been quietly destroyed inside a family system that protects the abuser because they're old or religious or helped us once, you'll understand why I'm not shutting up. I tried staying quiet. It just protected the person hurting me. So no, I'm not taking the video down. And if you're dealing with something similar, you're not alone. In that video, I added one more twist. I played a clip of a voice message my grandma had left me a month earlier, completely different tone from the Thanksgiving scene. I'd saved it because something about it had bothered me then. Emily, she'd said in the message, voice syrupy sweet. I know you're always good with technology. I need to update some of my account details online. Be a good girl and send me your social security number and date of birth again so I can set something up for your future. Don't tell your mother. I want it to be a surprise. I paused the recording and looked straight at the camera. I never sent her my details in that message, but she already had them from when she set up my college fund. Think about that. Think about the way older family members sometimes talk to us like we're children while using our information like this. Again, I blurred her name on the voicemail screen. I wasn't trying to get people to hunt her down. I just wanted the pattern to be obvious. The next big twist came the following Sunday when I walked into our church. Yes, I still went. Partly out of habit, partly because I stubbornly refused to let her push me out of spaces I grew up in. The murmur of whispers followed me down the aisle. Heads turned. A couple of people smiled awkwardly. Others looked away. Pastor James, a kind man in his 60s, caught my eye. After the service, he asked if we could talk in his office. I've seen your videos, he said gently once the door closed, and I've also spoken to Maggie. Of course he had. She's very upset, he continued. She says you've misrepresented her. I have screenshots, I replied. And a credit report. and a police report number. He sighed. I'm not here to accuse you. Actually, a few other members have come forward with concerns about how certain donations were handled. I'm looking into it. That was another twist I hadn't expected. For years, Grandma had been in charge of special offerings, especially for building repairs or helping struggling families. She'd always framed herself as the generous collector and distributor of funds. The idea that others were now questioning that too was vindicating. I'm not trying to destroy her, I said quietly. I just want her to stop destroying me. He nodded. Whatever happens next, I want you to know you've been heard. Sometimes bringing things into the light is the only way to break unhealthy patterns. Word got back to Grandma that he'd said that. I know because the next day I got an email from her. An actual email, not a text, not a handwritten note in her usual cursive. A cold, typed email. Subject line: urgent. Emily, I have seen the lies you are spreading about me online. You are twisting normal family help into some kind of crime. I will not stand for this. If you do not remove those videos and post a public apology, I will be consulting a solicitor about defamation. You are mentally unwell and need help. Grandma Maggie. There it was, the "you're crazy" card. Classic. I stared at the word defamation and, for a second, my stomach flipped. What if she really did sue me? Even if I had proof, the stress could break me. Then I remembered. Truth is a defense. I had documentation. I hadn't even used her full name online. If she wanted to drag this into a courtroom, she'd have to prove I was lying, and that would mean exposing everything. I wrote back one line. I am happy to provide all relevant documentation to any solicitor you consult. Then I printed the email and dropped it into the Maggie Receipts folder. A week later, I got a letter from the credit card company about the store account. After reviewing my report and the evidence, they agreed it was likely opened without my knowledge. They closed the account, removed it from my record, and mentioned, almost casually, that they'd be reviewing the application for potential fraud. I smiled for the first time in days. That was a quiet form of justice. It wouldn't put her in jail, but it would put a note in some system somewhere with her name flagged next to suspected fraud. And that mattered. Meanwhile, my online following had grown. People started asking for an update. So I made a part 3 video. In it, I shared that the account had been closed, that the phone contract was under investigation, that my credit was safe for now. I also shared, for the first time, that my own mother had admitted knowing about the college fund situation and keeping quiet out of fear. I'm not telling you this to villainize her, I said. She's part victim too. That's how these systems work. They make everyone dependent on the abuser. Financially, emotionally, socially. They make everyone afraid to tell the truth because of what they might lose. I'm just choosing to lose it now, rather than later. The comments blew up again. More stories. More women saying they saw their own families in mine. The next family twist came from an unexpected place. My sister, Chloe. She showed up at my flat one Tuesday night, eyes red, clutching a tote bag like a shield. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She stood awkwardly in my tiny kitchen, looking at the stack of dishes in the sink, the piles of notebooks on my table. "I watched all your videos," she said. I wanted to be angry. I was, at first. You made everything so public. But then I thought about something. She reached into her bag and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. It was an email printout from Grandma. "Last year," she said, voice shaking, "Grandma offered to help me with a car loan. She said my credit wasn't long enough on its own. She wanted me to sign some forms so she could add me to her card to build my score. I got scared and backed out at the last minute. She was furious. She told me I was ungrateful and irresponsible. Then she sent me this." I read the email. It was full of subtle threats. If you won't accept my guidance, don't come crying to me when you can't afford anything. I've put my own credit on the line for this family so many times. Maybe I should just save what I have for the ones who appreciate me. After watching your video, Chloe whispered, I realized she might have been planning to do to me what she did to you. Just in reverse. Use my good credit for her stuff. I'm sorry I didn't defend you at Thanksgiving. I didn't know about the accounts. I just believed her. We all do. I exhaled slowly. This was another piece of the puzzle. Another person coming out from under her shadow. I'm not doing this to hurt you, I said. Or Mom, or anyone. I'm doing it to make it stop. Chloe nodded. I know. That's why I brought you this. I scanned the email into the Maggie receipts folder. Every new piece of evidence made me feel less like a vengeful granddaughter and more like a reluctant investigator. Somewhere in the middle of all this, my therapist, yes, I started seeing one finally, asked me a question that shaped how I handled the final act of my revenge. What does justice look like to you in this situation? She asked. Not fantasy justice, realistic justice. I thought about it for a long time. Honestly, I said, I want her to feel what I felt at that table, exposed, powerless, surrounded by people who know the truth and won't play along with her version anymore. I want her to lose the thing she cares about most, her control over the narrative, her image. I don't need her in prison. I want people to see her the way she really is. Then align your actions with that, my therapist said. Not with hurting her body or vandalizing her property or anything that would backfire on you. Aim at the image, at the story, and take care of yourself in the process. It was simple, but it stuck. Around that time, Pastor James did something brave. He sent out an email to the church leadership team saying there would be an internal review of all special offerings collected and distributed by volunteer members, including Grandma. It wasn't publicly shaming her, but it was also not letting it slide. Within days, I started getting messages from other older ladies in the church. I always wondered why Maggie insisted the money go through her personal account first. She told me she'd send receipts from the charity we supported, but I never saw them. I thought I was being unchristian for questioning it. I didn't share any of that online. That wasn't my story to tell, but I saved the messages, just in case. The final big step of my revenge plan came together almost by accident, when I looked at the calendar and realized Thanksgiving was coming up again. A year. It had almost been a year since that night at the table. In that year, my life had turned upside down. I had a modest but engaged online following, mostly women my age and older dealing with messy family dynamics. I had multiple videos out about financial boundaries, checking your credit, dealing with manipulative elders. I'd even been on a podcast. My relationship with my mom was strained but honest, finally. She'd started seeing her own therapist. My dad had, in a quiet way, apologized for not stepping in more. He never said the words, I'm sorry I didn't defend you, but he said, I should have paid more attention. I'm trying now. And that was close enough. Grandma, from what I could tell through the grapevine, had lost some of her shine at church. She still posted on her page, but the comments were different now. Less blind adoration, more cautious distance. A few people had asked publicly about donation receipts. Those comments disappeared almost as soon as they were posted. She hadn't been charged with anything criminal that I knew of. The companies dealing with the fraud had handled it quietly. But she had been asked to step back from handling funds at church. That kind of soft consequence that people like her hate because they can't twist it into a heroic story. Her graceful grandmother page had stopped growing. She'd posted a few vague updates about being persecuted by those you love and enduring trials with grace, which only made some of her followers more skeptical. I knew my videos had played a big part in that, and I wasn't done. For the anniversary of that awful Thanksgiving, I decided to record one more big video. Not just a story, but a reconstruction. I sat in front of my camera and said, "A year ago today, my grandmother stood up at a Thanksgiving table and called me a thief. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what she accused me of and what really happened." I printed out the alleged mystery subscription charges she'd blamed on me because, in the whole mess, I'd finally gotten a look at the statement she'd waved around. Turned out they were for a basic Netflix-type service and a cheap online game her friend's grandson had installed for her. The email address linked to those purchases wasn't mine. It was one she used for her Facebook page. The bank had just confused things when she called, and she jumped straight to, "My tech-savvy granddaughter must be behind this." I explained that in the video. I showed how quick she'd been to use me as a scapegoat, how she'd framed it online. Then I revealed the bigger picture, the accounts in my name, the voicemail, the email to Chloe. I didn't show anything that would get me in legal trouble or dox her identity to strangers, but I made the pattern unmistakable. Then, for the final twist, I played an audio clip I'd been sitting on for months. A few weeks after my first viral video, Grandma had called me. I'd answered and immediately hit the record button on my phone because I didn't trust her anymore. On the recording, her voice was bitter, shaky. "You've turned everyone against me," she'd said. "Do you know how hard I've worked to build respect in this community? And you, with your little videos, you've made me look like a villain." "I told the truth," I'd replied on the call. "You could have come to me privately," she'd snapped. "Like I did about the college fund, like I tried to about the accounts," I'd said. "You only understand public pressure, Grandma. You've been using public shaming on me my whole life." She'd gone quiet, then said something that haunted me. "You always were too clever for your own good. Maybe this will teach you that clever girls get burned." In my final video, I paused the recording right after that line and looked at the camera. "That's the thing," I said. "For a long time she was right. Clever girls in families like mine do get burned, for seeing patterns, for naming them, for refusing to play along. But this last year has shown me something else. We also get to build something new out of the ashes. We get to tell our own stories instead of being the villain in someone else's." I scheduled that video to go live at 5 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day, the same time dinner usually started at Grandma's. I didn't go that year. I stayed in my flat, ordered Chinese, and watched a cheesy movie. My phone buzzed like crazy from notifications, but I ignored it until the credits rolled. When I finally checked, the video had already hit 500,000 views. My DMs were full of people saying they were watching it in their childhood bedrooms, hiding from their own relatives. A few even said they'd quietly shown it to a parent who finally got it. The family group chat was a mess. "Chloe, OMG Emily, you dropped this right in the middle of dinner? That was savage." "Uncle Steve, you're dead to this family." "Aunt Karen." Long paragraphs about respect. And then, something I never expected. A short message from my dad in the group chat where everyone could see it. "She's telling the truth," he wrote. "I should have spoken sooner. I've seen the documents. I've seen the accounts. We all let Mum control the story for too long. That ends now." Silence followed. No one replied for a long time. Then Chloe, "I'm leaving. This is too much." 10 minutes later, I got a text from her. "I'm coming over. Save me some spring rolls if you didn't eat them all." While I waited for her, my phone buzzed with one more notification. An email from Grandma. No subject line, just a blank where the title should be. "Emily," it read. "Congratulations. You've successfully turned everyone against me. I hope you're happy. I will not forget this. When I am gone, you will get nothing. I have made sure of that. Maybe then you'll realize what you've done." I read it twice. Once with anger, once with a kind of detached clarity. This was her last weapon, the inheritance, the money she'd always held over us like a leash. And now she was cutting it, thinking she was hurting me. As I sat there listening to the rain on my window and Chloe's footsteps coming up the stairs, I realized something important. My revenge had already taken that weapon from her before she'd even sent the email. Not because I'd destroyed her finances, but because I'd made peace with the idea that I didn't want anything from her that came with silence attached. I didn't reply to the email. I printed it and tucked it into the back of the Maggie receipts folder, more as a reminder to myself than anything. When Chloe came in, cheeks flushed from the cold, she flopped onto my couch and grabbed the remote. "You broke the family," she said, half joking, half serious. "No," I said softly, sitting next to her. "I just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken." She leaned her head on my shoulder. They stopped dinner halfway through. Grandma went to her room. Mum just sat there crying. "Dad actually told Uncle Steve to shut up when he started ranting about you." "Wow," I said. "Dad said, shut up?" We both laughed. It felt good, light, new. Over the next few months, things continued to shift. Grandma didn't go to jail. There were no dramatic court showdowns, but small, steady consequences built up around her. The bank and credit companies flagged her. She couldn't open new accounts as easily. The church quietly let it be known that she was no longer in charge of special offerings. Her Facebook page lost followers steadily, especially after one of my followers recognized her blurred-out posts and gently called her out in the comments for telling half-truths. Inside the family, the spell broke. Mum started pushing back when Grandma made snide comments. Dad stopped letting her rewrite history in front of him. Chloe set firmer boundaries too. When Grandma tried to guilt-trip her in an email, she forwarded it to me with a simple, "She's at it again," and then ignored it. I won't lie and say it was all satisfying. There were days I felt guilty, like I'd been too harsh. There were nights I cried because, under all the manipulation, there were real memories of her making me soup when I was sick, or teaching me to bake, or calling me her clever girl before that turned into a threat. But every time I doubted myself, I went back to that table in my mind, to the moment she called me a thief in front of everyone, fully knowing what she'd done with my name and my future. And I remembered the women online who'd written, "Because you spoke up, I checked my credit and found accounts in my name," and "I confronted my grandma and found out she'd done the same thing." That's when I realized my revenge had grown into something bigger than just payback. It had become a warning, a guide, a small light for other people stuck in the same kind of shadow I'd lived in. The last time I saw my grandma in person was at the grocery store, about 6 months after that second Thanksgiving. I was in the cereal aisle. She was by the tea. Our eyes met. For a second, the years fell away, and I saw the woman who used to sneak me cookies behind Mom's back. Then the hardness settled back into her face. "You've humiliated me," she said quietly. "No hello, no how are you." "You humiliated yourself," I replied just as quietly. "I just stopped covering for you." Her lips pressed together. "You think you've won something?" "No," I said. "This isn't about winning. It's about ending something. I'm not your scapegoat anymore. You don't get to write my story." She looked at me like she was trying to find the little girl she used to control and couldn't. Then she shook her head, turned her cart, and walked away. I watched her go, feeling, not triumphant exactly, but steady, grounded, free, in a way I'd never felt around her before. That, in the end, was the real revenge. Not just the videos, not the lost followers, not the quiet investigations. It was that I'd taken back my narrative, my name, my credit, my future. I'd exposed her pattern, not with lies or cruelty, but with simple, relentless truth. I'd broken the cycle of silence she'd relied on for decades. She can change her will. She can send bitter emails. She can call me mentally unwell to anyone who will listen, but she can't call me a thief without people wondering what she took from me first. She can't post about family betrayal without someone in her comments asking, What did you do to her? Justice, for me, didn't look like handcuffs or courtrooms. It looked like that. The shift in power, the cracking of her image, the end of her absolute control. It looked like my mum and sister sitting on my sofa instead of around her table, choosing my messy, honest little flat over her perfect, silent dining room. And it looked like this: me, a 27-year-old woman with a camera and a Wi-Fi connection, finally telling my story in my own words, no longer freezing when someone shames me in public, but standing in the light and saying, calmly and clearly, here is what really happened. Here is the truth. She taught me, in a twisted way, how powerful a public story can be. I just turned that lesson back on her. That was my revenge, and I don't regret a single second of it.